Hi everyone, my name is Carol Renault. I'm the current chair of the Sanitation Committee. Thank you so much for joining us. And we're going to reconsider, we're going to send out a notice because there might be, we're probably going to be postponing the meeting for February just because we're up against the President's Day holiday and different holidays in that month as well. I'm going to give a brief report and then we're going to have a subcommittee report. But Ms. Friedstadt, I'm going to ask if we can move that until after Ms. Cunningham time with us, just so we can release her in case she needs to leave. Then we're going to do the subcommittee report after, unfinished business and new business after as well.
No problem.
Thank you so much. So just a brief report. The notices that were sent in to us, the reports that we had received regarding illegally parked bus at Tilden and East 56th, this was removed. We had reported it to the different places such as 311 and DOT, and we had followed up as well. But on the day of our general meeting, which was on January 18th, I drove by this location just to make sure that this situation no longer existed and the buses were not there anymore. One of the second ongoing issue that we had received, extremely filthy condition on Nostrand between Church and Erasmus. Same thing, on January 18th, I drove by this location at approximately 6:20 and it looked clean at that time. I'm not saying it is clean now because it's been 2 weeks, but we're doing follow-ups as much as we can. We're still fine-tuning our reporting system when community are reporting issues into us. With the ongoing dumping in our community, we wanted to highlight 2 Department of Sanitation programs, and we're going to send that out in an email. I'm not going to take too much time to get into it, but there's an illegal dumping award program where an affidavit is completed after witnessing an illegal dumping. When the lawbreaker is fined, the person who report is eligible for 50% of the fine collected. There's also one other program, illegal dumping tip program. Anyone who tips the city so that an illegal dumper is caught is eligible for fines collected as well. We want to remind everyone on here, we want to remind your neighbors to continue to reach out to us, send in your reports, your sanitation reports. And the last thing that I just want to highlight, we had a reporter who contacted us from Gotamist. The reporter is looking at data which were collected from the 311 system. This is why it's so important to send in these reports. They've noticed a high incidence of illegal dumping in our community, and they wanted to speak with the community board. Now, before we speak with this reporter, we had pushed back and just wanted to know what they needed this information for. So we're going to be following up, and not until we receive something else from them will we be speaking with Gotamis. And that ends my brief report. Any questions, any comments, anything that anyone needs to highlight at this time?
Could you just clarify exactly what illegal dumping is considered? Is that like taking household garbage to the corner cans, or is it more, is there more to it than that?
That is a part of it. And also, for example, when they're dumping cars and leaving it on the block. So there are many things that comes under illegal dumping. Household garbage, tires, construction garbage, many different items comes under illegal dumping.
Can I actually clarify, if you don't mind?
Not a problem, Ms. Cunningham, and I'm glad you're here.
Yes. So greetings to everyone. Hello, hello.
Ms. Cunningham, what I'm going to do, you know what? Let me just introduce you, and then I'm
Sure.
going to ask you to speak on that and
Sure.
any other questions that we might have. So we have Miss Teresa Cunningham here with us, and we're thankful that she's taking the time out of her busy schedule to be here with us. Ms. Cunningham has been with the Department of Sanitation for over 12 years and is currently their executive officer in the Bureau of Community Affairs citywide. She's responsible. She had noted that she's responsible for a wide array of events and feels a variety of concerns, but her focus is Brooklyn. And for those who's been with the sanitation committee for a while, I'm sure you've heard from Ms. Cunningham before. Welcome again, Ms. Cunningham, and thankful for being here. Ms. Friedstadt, now you're going to get a more detailed response to your from an expert. Thanks again.
No worries. Again, just good evening to everyone. Just to clarify about illegal dumping, it's not so much the material that is dumped. It is actually where the material comes from. So for illegal dumping specifically, in terms of like what you would report to the reward program or even the tip line, it has to come from a vehicle. So to be considered illegal dumping, the material discarded has to come from a vehicle. We actually use the license plate to apprehend whomever is doing the dumping. And so that's what carries the major fines. You know, the illegal dumping summonses can be upwards of $4,000. We impound the vehicle when, again, whether it's construction debris, furniture, anything, trash, bags, it has to be coming from a vehicle. Any other type of discarded material that people either put at the curb, put near the basket, those are still illegal infractions. They're still summonsable offenses, but that would be either considered illegal drop-offs or littering or improper use of basket, just depending on what the situation is. But like I said, I just wanted to clarify and reiterate that for illegal dumping specifically, it has to come from a vehicle.
Ms. Friedstadt, does that answer? Do you have any follow-up questions for Ms. Cunningham, or?
That was very thorough. Thank you.
So we now know that we need to fine tune what we're attempting to do as well regarding the baskets at the corner. The wording will definitely have to be rephrased. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to ask Ms. Cunningham to continue to field any questions that we might have, or just to give us a little bit more about the best practices when it comes to Department of Sanitation.
Sure. So if you don't mind, I actually want to share a really quick presentation with you guys. One of the things, and of course I'll talk through as we're doing the presentation. Are most of you on video or over the phone? Are most people
only one person on the phone?
Okay, so yes, I'd like to share my screen if I can. I have a very brief PowerPoint.
Ms. Barton, would you be able to give Ms. Cunningham access?
There you go.
Okay. Okay. Are you guys able to see that?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so I just want to, and like I said, I will go into detail of best practices and stuff like that as I move through the PowerPoint. But one of the things that I wanted to highlight is that the set out times for refuse and recycling is going to change. And so effective April 1st, there's going to be some new times. Sorry. Cash sidewalks. So that people who are stuff like that, they're not having to walk through bags, walk through things along the sidewalks, and ultimately make our streets cleaner and work towards reducing the rats. Having the street, having on the street for a less amount of time. That's the goal. That's the objective. So there's two options. There's going to be two options to set out the garbage. whether it's your trash, your recycling, outside composting, which there's been some announcements about that. And it's for residents that use a 55-gallon container with a secure lid. You can put your garbage out after 6 p.m. If you're going to put it out in a black bag, now for garbage, just as a clarification, also as a best practice, you are to use black bags for your refuse, and they should be securely tied. Now, we prefer that people use containers, although black bags are still considered an acceptable receptacle. However, again, if we're trying to combat the rats, rodents, things of that nature, a container is advisable. But if it's in a black bag, you do have to adhere to the 8 p.m. Set out time. So you will have to put your bags out now after 8 p.m., but before midnight to ensure timely collection. For businesses, this new rule is going to affect businesses as well. And they are going to be tasked with also 2 options of setting out their trash, recycling, and composting. If they have a secured container, they can put it out 1 hour before closing. But if they too are using opaque black bags, they have to put it out after 8 p.m. If the business has waste that's collected from a loading dock or, from one of the large metal containers, then this does not apply to them. The containers just need to be removed from the curb by the time the businesses reopen. In terms of this new rule, we know that it's new, it's changed. People are sometimes resistant to change, but we will be conducting outreach to both residents and and businesses to make sure that people are aware that these are some of the changes that are coming. So we are having conversations with community boards, of course, but there will be mailers that are sent to your homes, to property managers, to businesses. We're reaching out directly to buildings with 10 or more units, or to the janitorial staff. We also are going to have paid media campaigns. So we're going to have, digital, social media, print, radio, public space advertisement, just to make sure that we get the word out. And yeah, so this is just general contact information, community affairs, if you have any questions about the set out time. But hopefully I'll be able to answer any of your questions about that tonight. And so, yeah, I'm going to stop sharing for the moment. And then we can just get into some of the best practices in general with regard to sanitation. So, of course, we went over the set out times. We want to make sure that people are placing their garbage out in a timely fashion in the proper receptacle. We also want to make sure that people are maintaining their sidewalks up to 8 inches in the street. As property owners, everyone is responsible for doing that, which ties into our street sweeping, of course. I know there's been some challenges with street sweeping, but that's something that if you're having an issue, that you can definitely reach out to us. We try to make sure that it's monitored. If it's not done adequately, then we can follow up on that. But residents have to do their part in maintaining the area as well. So it's a partnership. Also clearing, as we are clearly in the winter months now, clearing snow and ice, also just as a part of best practices for residents, homeowners, property owners, or homeowners are responsible for making sure that there is a path at least 4 feet wide that's created after snow. Please please do not place any snow into the street. We also want to work to clear the fire hydrants and corner ramps, although we do hire snow laborers to help and assist with that. So if any of you know people who may be interested in some part-time work, We are actively registering snow laborers in case we do get, you know, a large snowfall. Thankfully, we've been pretty lucky so far this winter. I do see a hand. I'm almost done. So as soon as I'm done, I will answer your question, Brian.
Ms. Cunningham, one sec. For some
yes,
reason,
sure.
you're breaking up. You're sporadically. I'm not sure what it is.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Is there a portion that you missed?
No, Brian was pointing it out in the chat as well, and I heard it on my end. So hopefully it's a little better for everyone.
Okay. Sorry about that. Okay. I'm going to continue, but definitely let me know. I just popped open the chat. I didn't have it open before. But hopefully you can hear me now. Litter baskets. We did reference it a little while ago in talking about basket misuse. It is important that we encourage residents to make sure that litter baskets are for litter, not for people putting their household waste or putting large items into the waste baskets. That's not what they're there for. So we really want to try to make sure that people are using it appropriately. It should be light, you know, on the go kind of garbage. You finish drinking, you want to toss it, the type of stuff that's appropriate. We've seen crazy things like mattresses and furniture and all kind of stuff left outside of the basket, and that is considered abuse. And unfortunately, that usually results in the basket being taken away because it is not being used for these and encourage people to make sure that they're still covering their mattress. You can get a summons if you do not have your mattress covered. You can order a mattress cover online. It could be the disposable one, plastic. If you just want to tape plastic all around it, it just has to be fully covered. Walmart or any of those type of stores will sell mattress covers. But prior to disposal, please make sure that it's covered. And recycling. We definitely want to always encourage people to make sure that they are recycling. It's obviously better for the environment. It also helps to reduce waste to landfills, which is one of the major goals of our commissioner and our new mayor. And we really want to make sure that our overall, we're moving towards greener and more healthy practices in New York. So making sure that we recycle, it's been the law for over 30 years, but we know that sometimes people still struggle with it. So whenever we can encourage people to do that, that would be great. So yeah, that's almost all the things I wanted to touch on, but of course, happy to answer any specific questions that you guys have in terms of what's happening within Community Board 17.
And I see Mr. Ship. Brian, if you want to go ahead, then after that it's Lulu.
Yeah, sure. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. So I guess my question and a comment, I guess the new rules that you referred to are great. I guess great to see and interesting. I hadn't heard about them at all until now. But the first thing that comes to my mind is you know, the rules, any rule is meaningless if people don't observe it, and frequently people won't observe it unless there's a penalty for not observing it, which comes to enforcement questions, right? So my first question would be, what if anything is the plan to enforce those changes of rules? And I ask that question because not having heard about these changes before, I sort of new to this, and this is kind of the choir right here. I'm sure this group of people is the choir. Nobody here needs to hear the mandate clean up your street, because I bet everyone on this call does it. It's all the people that aren't on the call that don't do it. And they probably, all those people that don't do it, aren't getting penalized or getting enforcement notices for failure to clean up their trash. And if the rules change, it seems to me less likely that there's going to be more enforcement of it. So I just, you know, the thing that I struggle with in the topic of sanitation and cleanliness in the city, which I suspect everybody here does a little bit, is that there's just garbage everywhere. And part of the reason there's garbage everywhere is that the city doesn't enforce the requirements to clean it up. And when sorry, I'm not trying to yell, I just get very frustrated about it. There's no enforcement of these rules. So I worry that changing the rules will just make the city less inclined to enforce because they're worried that people will get upset. But that's the whole point, is that people need to get a little bit upset about these rules and be pushed to observe them if you want to get trash off the streets. And, you know, I don't complain about my neighbors that much because they don't do a bad job cleaning up in front of their houses. But who is it that enforces these rules? There's nobody moves the cars off the street for street sweeping. If the street sweeper doesn't come by, the trash is going to stay there, but nobody ever penalizes the buildings that don't clean up. I'm sorry, I'll stop there. But the question is, what's the enforcement picture for these rules? How they're meaningless if the city doesn't enforce it.
So these will be enforceable rules. These will be subject to fines if people do not adhere to them. I don't know the fine amounts yet, but I do expect that before April 1st, we will have that information specifically as to what the fine amount will be. And in general, we do enforce. You may not see it in a particular location, but we have, the statistics. If there's a specific location, I'm happy to, bump any specific blocks that you feel are being negligent, so that we can make sure we increase enforcement in those areas. But a general statement that we don't enforce, unfortunately, isn't accurate, because we do, but we can't be everywhere at one time. So that's why I know that Carol had mentioned earlier about filing 311s. They are very important. We do use them. I can't speak for, every agency, but we certainly review them. We certainly use that for, more targeted enforcement where we see that there's, increased number of complaints that we know that we need to visit these locations. So if people are filing complaints about, people not maintaining in front of their property or not moving their cars, we do share jurisdiction with NYPD with regard to people not moving their cars during street sweeping. However, our supervisors can issue summonses for that as well. So like I said, if there's specific locations, happy to circle back on those and make sure that our team is aware.
Can't hear you, Miss Cunningham.
You didn't hear you didn't hear my response?
Until the end, we lost you at the end.
Oh, I was just saying I'm happy to circle back if there are any specific locations, blocks, addresses, buildings that you feel may need increased enforcement.
Yeah. Well, I don't want to take up everybody's time, and I'll maybe pass the baton to others that have their hands up. Just two comments though, and I don't mean to sound adversarial, because I really don't want to come across that way. I just want to forcefully sort of express my view. And I'm obviously not positioned to know who is enforcing and how frequently, because there's no information that I would receive about whether complaints have been reacted to be honest. So that's a gap, I would say, in the public reporting, for instance. So, and I do it frequently. I file 311s, which is not easy, by the way, because the app is not tailored to file complaints against DSNY or to file complaints against properties. It's difficult. So for some things, I can just tap my phone and complain about this and that, and it will go through. But when it relates to some things like this topic, you have to send a telegram. You have to get a pigeon to fly it seems like there's a little bit of an administrative bottlenecks to getting some of this information into the relevant authorities, which I think is troublesome, because you have people like me that think that nothing is happening in response to complaints.
Well, there shouldn't
that-
be, but I would encourage you, if you guys maybe as the sanitation committee can come up with a list, that perhaps Carol can email me and we can review, especially if you already have 311 numbers filed, you can put the location and put the 311 number, and I'd be happy to follow up on
Yeah, well, that sounds fine, but
individually.
these are chronic issues, right? I can't complain each and every day when someone has left
No,
piles
no,
of
no,
garbage.
I'm not saying each and every about the if it's chronic, then those specific locations, those are the ones that we want to make sure that we're following up. So I want to make sure if you're saying, this block, this and this, that there's been some action, I can follow up on that.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that this needs to be a daily practice by any means. What I'm saying is that if there are locations that have had this issue ongoing, I want to know and I want to be able to follow up on it. So if you can let me know what those are,
Yeah.
then we can follow up on those.
Miss
Yeah,
Cunningham, Brian, just to
Yeah.
add in addition to what Mr. Ship is saying, Miss Cunningham, Mr. Ship, maybe you can just briefly share your pickup that was left out. Was it a few weeks before it was picked up, or? And
Right.
before I let you go, if you can
Sure.
please email me a few addresses, and I definitely will get it to Miss Cunningham as well.
Yeah, and I know that others have their hands up, so I'm going to stop now. I'll jump back in later with more if there's time.
And I believe I saw, was it Lulu after, and then Monica, and then Miss Quashe, Miss McCain Brown, then Miss Quashe. So Miss
Yes.
Friedstadt,
Thank you, Ms. Renault. I'll be brief. I just wanted more information about the snow. We normally do shovel the snow into like the curb of the street in between cars, but I heard you say you don't want it in the street. I'm not sure that our sidewalk is that much more than 4 feet. So if we're not putting it in the street, where would you like us to put it?
Ideally, like on a front lawn or in a grassy area where it can melt. That's ideal. The only reason we say not in the street because it tends to block cars, or if it goes back in the street, it can look like the street was not plowed. So if
You're
street,
kind of
it can kind
cutting
of.
out again. I heard you say in a yard.
I was saying, and can you hear me now?
I can.
Okay, I'm not sure why there's audio issues. I'm trying to fix that. But I was saying that ideally it would be like in a front lawn or a backyard or any grassy area, as opposed to the street, only because it can block cars being on the street or create icy conditions if it's cold and the snow freezes over. So we try for safety, for everyone's safety, we try to make sure that the that people are not putting snow back into the street.
All right, I'm just going to say that I'm not sure that's realistic. If we put the snow like in our yards and in the tree beds, it's going to kill the flowers because it'll take a really long time to melt. So anyway, I would just encourage you to maybe think creatively about what options are available to people in, sort of residential areas where there are not big yards or any place to put the snow. That's just some input. I know that's more kind of like a long-term discussion to figure those things out. I appreciate your report. Thank you so much.
No worries.
what I'm gonna do, Ms. Friedstadt, maybe there's an ongoing community feedback forum that we can get to Ms. Cunningham and DSNY after, because we know a lot of the issues might not be resolved immediately. But I'm gonna go to Ms. McCain Brown. I know you had your hand up, then Ms. Quashe.
Thank you, Ms. Renaud. Ms. Cunningham, are you all hearing me?
Yes,
Yes,
we
I
are.
can hear you.
Okay. My concern has to do, coming back to something Mr. Chip spoke about, has to do with street cleaning. And I am diligent. I've stayed in the city and would love to see our streets cleaned. Brooklyn Avenue between Avenue D and Tilden. And I saw one of the supervisors in that white and green car. And I spoke with him recently about why the cars are not given tickets when they're all not moved and the streets cannot be cleaned. And the response was, I'm not going to give 500 tickets. And I know it's incumbent on us, those of us who live here, and those of us in authority to do what we're supposed to do. And I think that's not satisfactory. And I think that if the cars stay and no tickets are given, whether by sanitation or by police or whoever, we're going to continue to have the same issues. There needs to be some sort of enforcement. So that answer did not sit very well with me. And he may not live in this area, but I do. And when the cars are not moved, it's a concern because the streets remain uncleaned and unkept. So those of us again who are trying to do what we're supposed to do, it's like we get no satisfaction, whether from our neighbors or those who are supposed to ensure that the right thing should be done. Whether the person is ticketed, if that's what it should be, it should be. There are cars that park in the hydrant and never move. Never move. And I'm sure if those people who come around in the white cars with the green, I don't believe that they don't think or don't know where a hydrant ought to be. So I think that there needs to be enforcement on all ends. We can speak to our neighbors as community, but those who in authority who are supposed to do their part should also be doing it and not giving excuses for not doing their job.
I will definitely follow up on Brooklyn between Tilden and Moody.
But to be clear, though, it's chronic. It's everywhere. Sorry, Monica. Thank you for saying that.
You're welcome.
It's
Chronic
not just
and
Brooklyn.
everywhere. I understand that, but as I expressed, it's helpful, most helpful for you to provide the location.
Yes.
Like giving me Brooklyn, Tilden, and Avenue D, I can specifically request that we make sure enforcement. Like, of course, I can go back and say, can we, make sure that enforcement is taking on, in Community Board 17. But the reality is we can't be on every block all the time. ASP segments are only usually an hour and a half. So we can prioritize areas that you're having the most egregious concerns.
I have a question in this regard. One time I tried to file, I tried to call in and complain, or I wouldn't even call it a complaint, to just advise the department that the street cleaning had not occurred on a given day, say. And I was told that I was not allowed to complain about it unless I could provide evidence within a specific window on a specific block and give a reference to the signage that was in force. And I could only call on the day that it happened in order to make a complaint about a street sweeping failure. It is unbelievable to me that there would be rules that prevent the community to advise the department about its shortcoming in the service.
I don't know
would
about
there
that.
be a constraint to receiving information from the community? It's amazing to me.
Constraint. The only constraint that I'm aware of is for miscollection. You do have to give 24-hour notice for that. But as far as I am aware, there should not be restrictions to filing a sweeping complaint. Okay. Unless there was a holiday in which... Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, Ms. Cunningham. I just wanted to add that this is the second time that I have spoken because I'm on the street. I'm retired. I'm on the street and I see them. And this is the second time that I've noted it and I have spoken to someone. That's why I was able to give that detail that I said, because I know, for me, I know exactly when, where, how, etc. Because I spoke to the person, and I won't go into all the conversation, but I think that was something that was major, why I specifically mentioned that aspect of the conversation.
Miss Cunningham and Miss McCain-Brown, just to try to get a clear course of action. I'm just looking at what we do on our block, and I'm not saying it's going to work everywhere, but we're asking you. When we report to 311, and that doesn't seem like that's getting resolved, is there a supervisor, a sanitation supervisor in the neighborhood? Because we've called the sanitation supervisor from time to time, And when that didn't work, then we called the 67 precinct. But we know that our 67 precinct is pressed for resources, and they could be better utilized to fight crime. So we try not to do that as much. But is there like a clear chain of command that should be addressing these concerns?
If you filed the 311 complaint already, you can follow up with our customer service unit, which is a branch of my office. And the number for that, which you can add to the chat, is 212-291-1220.
Mhm.
I'll repeat it again, 212-291-1220. And anybody there will be happy to follow up on a concern. But like I said, it is helpful if you are able to make the 301 complaint, but they will follow up if for some reason you're not seeing action towards whatever complaint that you made.
So it's better to call this 211 number than calling the supervisor in this area.
In my opinion, it may be more helpful. A lot of time the supervisors are tasked with several different things. The customer service representative may be better able to, hear your complaint and follow up. So that would be my recommendation. It's not wrong to call either, but my recommendation, particularly if you haven't felt as though appropriate action has been taken, my recommendation would be to call the customer service number.
Got it. Just so Ms. Quashie can ask her question, I'm going to go to Ms. Quashie. Then we're going to come to Ms. Heron Robinson.
Good evening, Ms. Cunningham.
Hi, Ms. Quashie.
How you doing? Long time no speak to.
Yes.
And I'm going to give you kudos for your customer service office. Just
you.
to let you know, Dr. Renaud, I had an issue with the last 2 Saturdays with sanitation not picking up the garbage by my location, and I called the office, and it was resolved on the same day. So yes, calling the hotline is a lot better than calling sometimes the garage or the supervisors.
The same
So,
the same 212 number
yes,
just mentioned, right, Ms.
yes.
Quashie?
yes,
Yes.
yes.
Miss Quashie is very familiar with me and my team. So I think she
I
definitely
use
can
it quite
attest
well.
to we try to help. We try to help.
Yes. So I will take my hat off to them. They're very helpful. And they do follow up. When you call the garage, you might get some help or you might get a runaround and you might get pissed off. I will tell you that quite bluntly.
Right. We've spoken to Ms. Thomas numerous times. We know all of their names. Ms. Thomas, Paul, Joe, we know them all.
Yes. So, yes, call the hotline. You'll be better off. Mike, I have a couple of questions, Ms. Cunningham. One is regards to the new rules coming up in April. Are there any exceptions for the timing for seniors? People going out once it gets dark at 4:30 in the winter time frames. 6 p.m. is quite dark, especially when we don't have good lighting in some of our areas, especially on Farragut Road, on Clarendon Road, East 42nd Street. We don't have good lighting. And that's one of the issues we've been complaining on another committee, that it's dark. And to ask seniors to come out at 6 p.m. is a lot, especially when we're going from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. Are there any considerations that were made about seniors going out at that new time frame?
Unfortunately, at this moment right now, no, I have not heard any, but I definitely will follow up with the board if any changes to that occur. There is still time between now and April 1st.
Okay.
And we do expect there to be printed material with additional information made available to residents. So if there are any caveats, I would be happy to follow up and let you know. But at this moment, I don't think so. I do think that that's the time across the board.
And are there any exceptions being made to Hasidic families?
No, to my
Okay.
knowledge, no.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure everything's being even. Stevens. Okay. Second thing I wanted to know is in regards to going on to Miss Monica and Brian comments about the street cleaning. I have written letters. I've sent pictures. And I'm also retired now, as you know. And I stand outside when the sweepers come out. And I have made recommendations that the street cleaner that comes on Farragut Road sometimes comes late. Sometimes he's speeding. And sometimes he doesn't clean properly. Okay. And I have one of the supervisors on the phone who pissed me off, excuse my language, tell me, so how fast was he coming down the road?
Mm.
And then he got on his computer and I said, look, I don't have a stopwatch. I said, maybe he's coming down 20 miles. And he goes, oh, he was coming down something like 12 miles an hour, which is acceptable. Something to that effect. I said, he didn't clean anything. And he's coming, sometimes he comes as late as the time over here is from 8:30 to 10 a.m. That's the cleaning on my area. And sometimes he gets here at 9:59. And the Fazio brothers are they're running a business across the street on Farragut Road, across from me, and they're waiting for 10 o'clock on the dot so they can get the cars back on the street after the street cleaning. So they're going to be there at 10 at the dot to put the cars back. Because they do move all their cars and they're good, neighbors. But at 10 o'clock, they're putting the cars back. So at 10 o'clock, this guy's coming at 9:59 and the streets aren't getting cleaned. Okay? He's dumbed down.
I can follow up at the location. I mean, 9:59 obviously is excessive. But if it does fall within
no,
the hour and a half,
sometimes he's come at 10:03. Okay, he's been late, or sometimes he doesn't come. Okay, and
we can follow up.
And sometimes they'll say, Vanessa, he didn't come at all, because they let me know. Because and that Farragut Road, it's a heavy traffic area. I get all the trash that comes down Farragut Road that blows on my house, my corner house property. Because I have the restaurants, I have the school kids. Everybody dumps everything by my house. For some reason, everything stops right there. And when we talk about the street cleaning, since Farragut Road is a two-way street, anything that's in the road blows onto my sidewalk and stays right there. So when we talk about the 18 inches of cleaning and it doesn't get cleaned, it eventually falls onto my property. So I would like to see the street cleaned properly. And Farragut Road, going all the way down to Albany, where the school is, and all the way up to Utica, doesn't get cleaned properly. And this is an ongoing complaint of mine. And because we have the gas station, we have the tire shop, we have Dollar General, and they all are not good neighbors because they have a lot of customers who just love to throw their stuff out the window. And it blows, the wind blows. And when you have oncoming traffic going back and forth, and you also have the tractor trailers going back and forth. So all the trash that's blowing from these areas, when the street isn't cleaned properly, the trash accumulates on the sidewalks. And it's not fair to this community that we're not cleaned properly. And I and I have a girlfriend who's from Community Board 18. And do you know what happens in Community Board 18? Their sweepers come around twice and cleans. He makes one passing and then he comes again. We never get this over here. We get one passing and they're done. And I was talking to her this morning, and she says, "Oh, the guy just came by." I says, "Wow." And she said, "He's coming back around." I said, "He's coming back around?" She said, "He does this all the time."
Miss,
And she even knows her sanitation guys.
Miss,
She says, "They don't change their guys." I said, "I never know my sanitation guys because they change them all the time because we have two different garages." Why we have two different garages, I don't know. But something has to go differently in order for us to be successful in this community. We can't keep bumping our head against the wall. This area is becoming dirtier and dirtier, and we're getting more buildings in our communities. Glenwood Road, Farragut Road, Nostrand Avenue. It's
New York,
hideous.
New York
New York
Avenue is
Avenue.
right.
Thank you. It's hideous. We're not
Miss,
getting better.
Miss
And
Kwashe,
yes, I'm
thank you
sorry.
so much. Thank you so much for that, Miss Kwashe. And
You're welcome.
it's not only in your area, Miss Cunningham. We're here. We know we need to put a face to all of the issues that we're facing, but just to piggyback off what Miss Kwashi and a few others have said already, I'm near 25th, near Avenue D, and we're near Flatbush, and we see it all the time, and we're always trying to come up with solutions. We try to get our elected officials involved, but it doesn't seem like we're getting anywhere either. And I'm comparing it to some of the communities that I'm in every single day because I teach and I drive from Flatbush. I go through Kensington, I go through Sunset Park, I go through, and I get to Bay Ridge, and it looks like a different New York. So we're really trying to come up with solutions or just what else can we do to try to improve. It affects our mental health. So we're looking at it from different angles as well. But Miss Cunningham, just so I don't keep going on and on, I know Miss Heron Robinson, she's been waiting. I'm going to ask her to ask her questions or comments. Miss Heron Robinson, you're still with us?
Hello? Hello?
Yes, please
Hello?
go ahead.
Okay. I was wondering, Ms. Cunningham, are there any programs whereby DSNY will give out free containers for placing garbage in the community areas to prevent the rodent problems that we are experiencing? And also,
No, but go ahead. Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't realize you had a second part. Go ahead.
Okay. The second part is when the street cleaners clean the streets and abandon cars or cars without license plates or whatever on the streets, do they report that, or is there a special unit that has to come out? We have to complain, we have to call 311 in order to get these cars removed. What I'm trying to say is, I noticed that I had to do a lot of 311 calls to remove abandoned cars from my block. But what I'm saying is, I was told by the 67 precinct that sanitation are supposed to issue the enforcement order in order for them to remove the cars. So I'm trying to get a feel of what should really take place.
Okay, the first part of your question, with regard to the bins, sanitation does not give out the free refuse containers. However, the Department of Health does as a part of their rat portal. You host one of the events that they have to find out more about how you can combat rats. I'm gonna see if I can put for that program, because they do have the containers.
Okay.
Hold on one second. I'm just looking it up to see if I can. Rat Academy. Sorry, the name was escaping me. But Rat Academies. So the Department of Health offers rat academies, and as you know, a community board, you guys can host one, or if you just want to go to one that they have, sometimes elected officials host them as well. And I have been to rat academies where they give out these large refuse containers with lids for free to people who attend. So that's something that you may be interested in following up with them for that.
So,
Okay.
okay. No, I was going to say, so they don't have a program whereby, say, they would give out free bin containers to a whole block or anything like that. It's on an individual basis?
So I'm not sure because it's a different agency. However, the events that I have personally been to, it was a first come first serve to the attendees. So regardless of where they lived or the proximity, it was just to those who were in attendance.
Okay.
So I'm not sure beyond that. Sorry?
So basically one would have to find out how exactly that program works. Am I correct on that?
Correct. And that would be with the Department of Health. They're the ones
Can't hear you.
who host. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
No,
Hello?
I didn't
Can you hear me?
you at all.
I was
yes,
saying
now.
Okay. I was saying that the Department of Health, that's who you would follow up with, so that they're the ones who host the rat academies, and they can tell you specifically what the criteria is for the bin giveaways.
Okay.
And then
And you have that link? You have that link?
I will look for it as soon as I'm done.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. And in terms of what was the second part? I'm sorry.
It was about the street cleaners, whether how you go about, do they not
the derelict vehicles
abandoned?
Right. Right. So the derelict vehicles, we do have a specific derelict vehicle unit, derelict vehicles, but I'm not sure what the 67th precinct was referring to in terms of their enforcement report. We share jurisdiction with them with regard to abandoned vehicles. For sanitation, the vehicle, in order for the vehicle to be considered derelict or abandoned, something that we can take action against, it cannot have license plates and it should be significantly damaged.
Okay.
That will enable to have a vehicle for removal.
So, excuse me, if it's not damaged, but it has no license plate, it will not be removed. Am I correct?
Not necessarily. So we can inspect it. There's a number of criteria, but essentially, if it meets our criteria, we tag it, and there has to be at least 6 hours in between the time that we tag it and it can be towed. If in that 6 hours someone comes to claim the vehicle, or if they remove the tag, or if they move the vehicle even a couple of feet, it starts the process over again. And unfortunately, a lot of that's the way that the legislation is. But yes, unfortunately, business owners, they are aware of these little loopholes, and they do play on that, unfortunately, at times. But if the vehicle is not of value, it's something that can be taken away by sanitation. If not, we do partner with PD. They're able to determine, even sometimes if the vehicle has plates, the police department can run those plates. If they're fake plates, if they're not associated with that car, they have a little bit more jurisdiction in terms of determining if that car is truly abandoned. And so that's why it's a shared jurisdiction between both agencies. But if there is a car on a particular location, let me know the location and I can follow up on it.
I was also told that, say a car had a Texas license plate on it, which we know, that's what they do now too. They put all these different states out of state plates on their cars. I was told that they could not be removed. Is that correct? They cannot be removed because of the out-of-state license plate. Am I correct?
I'm not sure about with NYPD, but if it has a license plate, no, sanitation cannot.
So you're saying it doesn't matter? That's what you're saying?
I'm not saying it doesn't matter. We have no jurisdiction over license plates specifically. If the vehicle has a plate, then unfortunately sanitation is not able to take action in terms of removing the vehicle. But for example, if that vehicle is there during street cleaning, we can issue a license. We can issue a summons. Now,
Okay.
I would have to get back to you with regard to whether or not the PD can remove a vehicle with out-of-state plates. I am not sure about that. If PD told you that, then yes, that's probably true, but I am not sure. I don't know their policy with regard to out-of-state plates.
Okay.
All right, Ms. Heron Robinson, that answers it for Ms. Cunningham.
Mm-hmm. Yes,
just-
it does. Thank you.
I've just dropped in the link that she was referencing for the RAD Academy.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I just saw that.
And there are upcoming trainings. For example, there's one on there tomorrow from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions or comments for Ms. Cunningham before we, I see Mr. Ship, you have something or?
Hi, guys. Yeah, I have a question. For sort of commercial properties and commercial districts, like I live near the junction, and I did a little check today. I guess it's not CB 17 itself, the junction. I'm near where CB 17 meets CB 18 and CB 14, I think. So right around there.
Mm-hmm.
There's the Flatbush BID, and I'm not very familiar with these BIDs, but the junction has a BID. And one of my big complaints is the quality of cleanup that the businesses do in front of their, like the Target, for instance. The Target is a horrible mess on the streets in front of the building. But they apparently have a BID, but the BID does a terrible job cleaning up. So if I wanted to complain, and this is a question here, if I wanted to complain that the Target isn't cleaning up their mess, or the Chase Bank isn't cleaning up their mess, or any other business around there, because that all looks terrible. There's trash everywhere all the time. Do I call the BID, and is the BID responsible for it? And if someone wants to penalize the Chase Bank or the TD Bank or the Target or any of them, like I said, because it's all a mess everywhere, does the business get penalized, or is it the case that they can say, that's not my problem, go call the BID? Because I feel like there's an issue there, that some of these businesses, they generate their business improvement district, and then they can say to themselves, oh, it's not our problem anymore to clean up the trash on the street. The manager of the Target doesn't have to take responsibility for that. He just says, go call the BID. But then the BID doesn't actually do a good job of it. They have like one guy that picks up one paper bag and he calls it a day. So two questions. Who's responsible for that for enforcement perspective if the Target does a bad job cleaning up, or any other business like it? If I wanted to complain, how can I get the complaint in? Is it against the Target or the business, or is it against the BID? And is there a better way? Because I feel like, even though there's a BID, there's still trash everywhere, and they don't clean it up.
And just before Ms. Cunningham comes back on, we're going to start wrapping it up. Ms. Cunningham, we thank you for your time, and we know you have to leave as well. So after Mr. Ship, just brief with Ms. Heron Robinson and Ms. Kwashi once more, but we need to wrap it up within roughly 5 minutes or so.
Yes, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we
can. You hear me?
Yes.
Okay. In response to Brian, that's a very good question. I want to say, but please don't quote me. I want to say that the businesses are still responsible no matter what, but I am going to follow up to find out for sure, because that's a good point, and I'm actually not 100% whether the bid, if they're responsible or they're contracted to clean, if they would be held responsible enforcement wise. So I'm going to follow up on that and get back to you just so that I make sure I'm giving you the correct information. And I will make a note that, you know, the concern specifically, I'm very familiar with the area surrounding the junction. So I will definitely make sure that that I follow up. But that's a good question. I'll look into that.
And Miss Lilith, Miss Heron Robinson, and then Miss Kwashi.
Yes, just a quick question. I gather that the mayor is stating that they're now going to have the compost, is it? Compost? They're going to try to, that compost program is now going to be applied to the 5 boroughs. I think it started in Queens, and then now I think he's going to try and get it in all the boroughs. Basically, what I'm asking is that with that program, I gather that the city will be supplying compost bins. Am I correct on that?
So we have in the past, there hasn't been specifics given just yet with regard to how that's going to look moving forward. This will be a fairly large expansion. So I don't have details with regard to the bin distribution for that, but it's a much smaller bin. It's not the same as, you know, your typical refuse container. It's a much smaller brown bin. But I can follow up with you on that as well as we get some more information. They just announced it a few days ago. So as soon as we have some more information with regard to bin distribution, I will follow up with you and let you know.
Thank you.
Okay,
and then I'm just
one more question, sorry. As far as recycling, at one time the bag had to be blue. Is it clear now or is it blue? Which is it?
It's clear. It's clear. It should be a clear bag.
It's a clear bag. So the blue bags are no longer apply to this. Am I right?
Correct.
And thanks again, Ms. Heron Robinson.
Why didn't sanitation send out notices letting people know this? I just found this out the other day.
I'm not sure. It's been clear for quite a while. I'm not sure.
I received no notification of this from them changing it from blue to clear.
And Miss Heron Robinson, what we're going to try to do is to try to start filtering some of this information out, but just in the essence of time. Thank you so much. Miss Kwashi, I know you had one final thing as well for Miss Cunningham.
Yes. Ms. Cunningham, I know that there's some small machines that are like sidewalk sweepers. Is there any opportunities that our community might be able to get some of those to clean our sidewalks since we're heavily populated? Or maybe that might be put on the table for discussion in your meetings with management?
Not sure what you're referring to. What type of small machines?
They're like little tiny, there are many machines that are they're called sidewalk sweepers. I think they have them in Far Rockaway.
Sanitation?
Yeah.
They're from Sanitation?
I think so. If I can find them, I'll send you an email.
Okay, please do, because I'm not sure. I haven't heard about that, but yeah, if you can, you can follow up with me.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much, everyone, for fielding your questions with Miss Cunningham. Miss Cunningham, what I have here, because I usually try to look at next steps. So you're going to get back to us regarding out-of-state license plate and the BID, the Business Improvement District information. And we're going to get back to you with addresses that are ongoing issues. And then we're going to share this stuff out with our larger community as well. Did we miss anything major?
I don't think so. That sounds about right to me.
Thanks so much for your time, Ms. Cunningham. Again, we truly appreciate it.
Oh, sorry. You're welcome.
We truly appreciate it, and we're gonna try to maintain this ongoing dialogue with you. Again, I know that you're no stranger to Community Board 17. We appreciate your time and we will be reaching out.
All right, no problem. Sounds good.
Thanks again.
You're welcome.
The rest of the time, we're just going to ask Miss Friedstad to go ahead. And if no one has anything else before we jump into what Miss Friedstad has to share, does anyone have any pressing issues before we, just a minute or two or so, before we get into our cleanup campaign part of it? All right, I'm going to ask Ms. Friedstad to go ahead and share out the subcommittee report. And I know you also wanted to show us something. I'm going to go on mute because it makes it a little bit less taxing on the bandwidth.
Thank you so much, Dr. Renaud. So I'm really excited. Dr. Renaud and I had a meeting on Saturday for the subcommittee. We had
Ms.
some.
Friedstad, I'm sorry. Carol is fine. I tell people I only do that when I'm trying to seek grants.
Okay, so Carol was there and she and I worked through some of the points that we were sent to discuss at the subcommittee. I apologize in advance. There was a mistake with the subcommittee meeting. It was supposed to be 2 weeks ago, and we set up the time, and then I got confused between that meeting and the regular sanitation committee meeting, and so I didn't go to the meeting we set up, and then we wound up rescheduling it. So if people were confused about it, I really apologize, and we'll try to be a lot more clear in the future about when the subcommittee meetings are and making sure that we have them when they're scheduled. But we did manage to move forward just the same. We went through the list of points that we were sent by the committee to discuss, and we did make some decisions. So, and I hope that everybody who's here who is worried about the litter and the trash in our community will definitely participate in the spring cleanup and the cleanups going forward, because I personally think that the one thing that we can do, we can talk to sanitation, and obviously we want the enforcement and we want them to do their job. But also we, as proud members of Flatbush, can help beautify it ourselves and plant flowers and organize teams. If you pick up trash together with other people, it's not nearly as bad, even kind of fun sometimes. I've done quite a few. And I think for us, we really want to get the spirit behind it. We want to get the whole community involved and have a public awareness campaign and make posters and maybe even like public service announcements and maybe even like a little jingle and t-shirts, and really try to get everybody involved in beautifying Flatbush, because Flatbush is beautiful and we deserve to have a beautiful community. So I hope the whole spirit can be fun and positive. And I'll go through some of the information that we decided, and I'll show you some images that we have. So the date that's set right now is April 29th for a cleanup. And I believe that it would be from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Carol, is that that's what we talked about for an ongoing, but is that what we would do for the April 29th as well, that time?
Yes, it is. That's what we had discussed as well.
Okay, so that's the idea. 11 a.m. You can still sleep in a little bit on Saturday morning, and 2-hour block isn't too much of a time commitment to ask for people. Definitely want to do before and after photos. Maybe get some t-shirts. I have some t-shirts to show you that the Tilder Block Association uses, and it is fun when everybody's in t-shirts. It is more kind of like a community spirit. Reach out to the merchants beforehand, get them involved. We are actually getting some traction. So I went with my husband to the Chase Bank recently, the one at Church and Nostrand, which has been, I'm just going to be frank and say that it's been a sty. It's just been so disgusting. And it was actually looked a lot better. And we were there anyway on our business at Chase Bank. And so we spoke to the vice president. She was really nice, a woman named Amal Haspini. And she said that she personally has been going out and addressing the litter and also daily writing. Basically, it's a request that has to go out for the Chase cleanup teams to come. And I said, can't that happen automatically? And she said, it has to happen, like she has to manually do it each day, but she's been doing it. And so we, Carol and I wrote a thank you note to her to thank her for that. And we really want to, when people are doing a good job, we definitely want to take note and get them involved and say thank you. So that's the type of thing that we're focusing on, is really trying to engage people positively. So the whole idea for the cleanup is basically this kind of like big picture overview is, We want to start on April 29th. That day has been cleared as a day that hopefully there's no other big events or holidays, so it should be clear for us. And then that is the last Saturday of the month. And then we would like to make that a regular time for a neighborhood-wide cleanup once a month, the last Saturday of the month, 11 to 1, so that we get traction, we get progress at this happening on a regular basis. What my experience has been in the past is that we go out there and we like clean up the Church and Nostrand corner. Like one year we did, I think last year we did from Nostrand over to New York, all along Church, and then kind of on the side streets as well. And it looked amazing. It looked spotless. It was so exciting. And I'd say within 2 or 3 days, it looked pretty bad again. So the idea is consistency. If we're going out there every month and we get the merchants involved and we start, it's the carrot and the stick, reward the merchants that are helping, enforcement for the people that aren't, and we start to really have people community-wide understand that we're cleaning up Flatbush and beautifying Flatbush, making Flatbush beautiful, then hopefully we can really start to make progress. So it would be once a month, the last Saturday of the month, just 2-hour commitment, 11 to 1. Idea right now is 10 sites across the community with at least 10 people signed up per site. So we're trying to get 100 people out. And then each site's going to need a team captain. So some of the people here who are really passionate about this, I'm looking at you, Brian Shipp and Ms. Quashie, who really obviously have a passion about litter. Maybe you'll be team leaders for your neighborhood. And then we do have some ideas about how to publicize this. So I have a poster that I've been working on, and I'm just going to try to share my screen and show you the poster. Let me see if it's going to let me. Okay. So here's a sample poster. It's just a template. It says "Let Flatbush Shine." Carol, I did grab the Community Board 17 logo just off the letterhead, but obviously I need a color logo, or maybe it's not a color logo, but I'll need a print quality logo, along with the Department of Sanitation, other organizations and public officials who have said they wanted to participate in this with us so far. Council Member Farrah Lewis, Assembly Member Rodney's Bichot Hermelin, 300 East 25th Street Block Association, Tilder Block Association, and then it has like a place for the 10 different sites, so you can write in your corner, like where you're going to meet each month, and we can distribute these both digitally and with real posters. You could just write in a Sharpie there, the corner where your team is meeting. And then we could also follow up with some other posters. A complimentary poster I'd like to see is something like this that sort of shows not to bring your household garbage to the corner. We also worked on a survey to ask people about their sanitation service, and kind of embedded prominently in that survey are some questions about household garbage. Do you bring your household garbage to the corner can? If so, why? We really have to get into that and understand it better. And so maybe with the survey that's not that doesn't feel judgmental, that feels just more like we're asking you, how is your sanitation service? There's a question in there, and maybe people will be more forthcoming about why they do that, and we can start to address it. It may be that the reason people are bringing their household garbage to the corner is because they're not getting the sanitation service that they're expecting, like in front, if it's not being picked up, or we have to kind of dig in and understand it better. But we can do a public campaign to try to discourage it. We also want to do more planting. So like this is a cherry blossom tree. This is our backyard. And we actually have 2 saplings from this tree right now that we're looking to plant. So I'm looking into trying to plant one at the corner of Church and Nostrand. And I think it would really beautify that corner. And these are the t-shirts that we have at Tilder. That's Mrs. Johnson, our neighborhood she's like the kind of leader of the Block Association, like in spirit. She's the one who started it. And on the back of the Tilder t-shirts, it has a number, like a jersey, like a sports number, but it's your house number actually. So like I'm at 135 East 32nd. So the back of my Tilder jersey says Freistadt 135. So they're sort of cute, but we have to figure out what's the best way to do that. So I think those are some ideas so far. I think the locations that we came up with so far, this is all up for discussion, but possibly East 25th and Clarendon, Tilder, which is East 32nd between Snyder and Tilden, East 34th and Church and Nostrand, 4112 Farragut Road, which is where the community board office is. Sounds like we definitely need one over in the Farragut area where Ms. Quashie lives and where Brian lives. And also Brian seemed to mention that the junction really needs cleaned up. So we're looking for 10 sites there with team captains, and we're coordinating with sanitation. So they would come and pick up the garbage that gets picked up that day. So that's a brief rundown, and I hope I left 10 minutes there for questions and hopefully enthusiasm. Thanks so much.
And the only thing I want to add before we have questions or comments for Lulu, we truly understand that without enforcement, this is not going to work. So we're also trying to discuss. We're trying to have an ongoing collaboration with the different enforcement agencies. Come out and do your job. So please don't think that we've omitted that. We know that that's an integral part of this process as well. Ms. Quashie, you have a question or comment?
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to take my hand down.
Mr. Ship, please feel free to go ahead.
Hey, so I guess question, the cleanup sort of ideas. Groups would go out to different designated areas and with sort of tools provided or organized in advance, and sort of fill up bags with the trash, and then the trucks, sanitation would come by and grab it.
You got it. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've done it quite a few times. We did a big one at Church and Nostrand, like I said, I think last spring. You definitely wear gloves. Usually, like the one we did, sanitation dropped off like brooms and dustpans and shovel. I think even like some shovels, maybe black plastic bags. I know like our block association has some other tools, like Marjorie, our president, has like a rolling cart that makes it a little bit easier.
Mhm.
Honestly, if you get a buddy to do it and sort of talk and joke your way down the block, it's not that bad. It's kind of fun. You feel so good because like the block looks so much better after you get done. And then we also went and we talked to merchants all along the block and said, hey, look, we're cleaning up here, and just reminded them that it is their responsibility to keep their sidewalk and the gutter in front of their sidewalk clean. They always will say, oh, we do, but
Right.
someone but we try to do it in a positive way, like, look, we're cleaning up, can you please keep it clean? And then what I do think is that we need to get more like graphic maps of each neighborhood that we're cleaning and keep track, so like this merchant, if we have like maps of the stores online that we can share, we can note, like Lulu, I talked to like these 3 merchants at these 3 stores in a row, and Brian, you like, I spoke with these 3 merchants and merchants. So we covered that whole block. And then somebody goes back, like say you're responsible for 3 stores and you go back a week later and you look and see, like, are they keeping it clean? In which case you say thank you, maybe even write a thank you card. And if they're not, you say, hey, I thought you guys, you said you're going to keep your block clean after we cleaned it up. So what can we do to help you? But this is your responsibility.
Is there, is it intended to focus more on the commercial heavier blocks, or less so? Because it's just so much more work to clean up in front of the commercial, because there'd be a lot of trash there.
Not necessarily so much the commercial, Brian. I mean, yes, they are big violators, but it's a mix, because some areas it's just filthy and there's like hardly, if it's a high traffic area, a lot of walking, it's really bad. But we weren't necessarily setting out to focus on them, but we know they play an important role and they're not doing their jobs. They're not cleaning in front of their places.
Right. Yeah, sounds great.
If Miss Quashie and Miss Heron Robinson, Mr. Tate, Miss McCain Brown, and Simone Sylvester, if you're unable to do it, but if you have a block association that you can point us to, maybe there's someone there that can partner with us.
I represent my block on, in my area. Are
Mhm.
you asking if I can get help from my block to assist in this cleanup? Is that what you're asking?
Yes, if you are able to, because ultimately, we are the people here attending the meeting. We definitely want to see our areas clean. So we're not necessarily going to get out there and cleanse anyone place for them. I mean, we
Right.
still are doing it, but preferably we would prefer to start at home.
Right. Well, I mean, I'm going to be very clear. I'm lucky to live in a nice, clean block area. I'm telling you that right now. We don't have a problem with garbage or stuff. Second problem is we don't put our garbage out in the front of our homes. They're in the back. So we don't have that, messy sidewalk situation, if you understand what I'm saying.
Right, I've seen some back alleys, right.
Yeah, so, if there's a rodent problem, it would be at the back of the property, not the front. So in that position, I'm saying, as far as the sidewalks and everything, no, we don't have that problem here. No.
Mm-hmm.
And the homeowners do clean the sidewalks. Yeah.
I think to me, the question is just like who would be interested in getting involved? Like Brian, you sounded like you were kind of enthused. What are the cross streets of your neighborhood that would be like a central cleanup area?
So I live on New York Avenue between H and Glenwood. And, as it was noted earlier, New York Avenue has a lot of the new buildings. And, in the past, maybe it wasn't as bad with trash as it is now. My block itself is actually not that bad. But where it is bad, it's the confluence of the failure of people to move their cars, right? And the failure of the street sweeping, and then the trash from the big buildings. When there's pickups, some of the bags rip open and stuff gets in the street, but then it just sits there and never gets cleaned up. So that's where the garbage comes from, right? It's not single houses like, mine or my neighbors, where they're just regular people, regular single families in homes and stuff. Everyone like that, they clean up after themselves. It's this confluence of problems with failures to enforce, failures to move the cars, failures to clean the streets, and big buildings with lots of garbage, and it just starts to spill over and make a mess. So that's the problem, the origin of the problem in the purely residential source, in my opinion, in my experience. In the area where I'm at. And obviously the commercial areas are another issue. But I'm not sure my point. My point I was going to suggest, to the extent, we're taking it upon ourselves, with the help of whatever tools from DSNY and so on to sort of organize cleanups. It'd be great to get, large building operators somehow engaged, or a sense of responsibility in some of it, because they're the source again of so much of the trash in the mostly residential areas in my neck of the woods. Is that something that's at all feasible, to sort of say, hey, building owner, show me your superintendent, get him out here? Is he going to help out, or is it just a waste of time?
Well, we have a building at the corner on my block, and every cleanup that we have, they do come out because they are part of our community where we're one. So they do definitely support everything that we have, whether it's the block party. I know some blocks are bigger, and New York Avenue tends to be much wider than our block. I'm not sure how community like it is, but over here, yes, the buildings they do come out and they do support, and they do follow through when we reach out to them.
I mean, Brian, I would say to you, like, would you be willing or feel comfortable to go to like pick one big building that you think maybe is the worst in your neighborhood and see if you can get in contact with the super there and let him know we're having a cleanup in April, and see if that super would be interested in being involved and would participate? Because to me, the reason to get involved personally is like Carol said, is to clean up our neighborhoods. Like I help with the cleanups on 32nd between Snyder and Tilden because I love my block. And when our block is clean, I feel so happy. And we have a lot of flowers and stuff too, and it makes the flowers shine more when the litter isn't there. And I go through the church and Nostrand stop whenever I leave the neighborhood, usually on the train or the bus. So I have to, look at the litter over there a lot. So when I clean it up, I feel like I personally benefit. So I would say, like, that would be the point of getting involved, is to, have feeling like you're supported in reaching out to the super in a large building in your neighborhood and trying to see if you can address something that's frustrating you personally.
Yeah, I'm totally on the same page with you about that. But I also want to make sure, once a year cleanup isn't gonna.
No, we're talking about once a month.
Yeah.
Once a month.
Oh, monthly. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I hope I didn't gloss over that.
No,
So the
I
whole
just maybe
idea
missed it.
is the third Saturday of the month, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. And maybe it's not the same communities each time, but we really try to turn this into a community-wide cleanup once a month, ongoing, get the merchants involved, get enforcement, like Carol said, get, a public awareness campaign. So we, maybe even go to schools and get the kids involved. We really need to, it absolutely has to be ongoing and consistent.
And we've all been here as well too, Brian, and everyone on this call. It's truly frustrating because we know, I mean, I've heard it reiterated several times, we're not the ones that are littering. And to have to clean up someone's mess is truly annoying. But it is only a start. And I'm truly cognizant of people's time. It's 9:01, and we want to express our sincere thanks again for joining us. But what we want you to know, that the conversation doesn't stop here. We check our emails often. It's ongoing. You can email in, you can call the community board, and I'm not going to pretend that everything is perfect. Sometimes you're not getting the response that you're looking for. They might not have responded as quickly as we wanted to, but we're trying to change that image, and we're asking for your help in doing it. So what we're going to do, we're going to email out a brief, a shortened, this is what was discussed to our members who are logging on here. And we're also going to try to send out something to the broader CB17 community. Most people don't know that complaint number. I've never heard that number until tonight. That 212 number, we usually call the precinct, we usually call the supervisor in this area. So we're just going to try to follow up with something to you, just letting you know where we are. I also want to say thanks so much to Ms. Friedstadt. You're doing a lot behind the scenes as well, and thanks to all of you on here. We get a lot of input from you, but please keep it coming. Let us know what we can do differently. We can't go over everything in an hour and a half, but we're here just to try to make it a little bit better. And trust me, I believe in enforcement. This is never going to work if enforcement and our elected officials are not held accountable. Any last minute burning issues or anything else? Since I hear none, then I'm just going to ask someone to make a motion to adjourn.
One moment, excuse me, one moment. Persons whose phone number ends in 80, can I have your name for the attendance?
Jadeva? No?
Okay, thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us as well, Jadiva. I did see your email earlier, and thanks again to everyone on here. And since we hear no further questions or issues, I'm going to ask someone to make a motion to adjourn the meeting. It's officially 9:04.
Vanessa Kwashi, motion to adjourn today's meeting.
And if someone can second the motion.
Second motion, Lulu Freistadt.
Thanks again, everyone. Please feel free to call in. If you don't get a response, hold us accountable and go to the chairperson and the district manager. Enjoy your week. Thank you so much again for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night.